Hi, I'm Michelle Craddock. I want to welcome you to our Digital Parent Talk, Episode 1. And today we're joined by Mandy Majors. She's the president and founder of nextTalk. And we're going to talk today about how to have healthy conversations with our children and why it's important to build that foundation when they're young, but also when they get older too. So thank you, Mandy, so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So before we get started with all of these amazing questions that we know you're going to just speak from your heart to give us the responses and to encourage those that are hearing. But tell us about your family. Tell us about your husband, your kids.
Well, I've been married to Matt for 25 years. We just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. It was a big one, right? It's a big one. We did a staycation, like stayed home, nothing on the calendar, which was amazing. Like just wake up every day. What can we do today? Like you don't ever have that, right? So that was the perfect 25th wedding trip, stay home. But yeah, and then I have 2 kids. They are now 20 and 17. So my daughter's 20, she's in college, and my son is 17. He's a junior in high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Mm-hmm. So those are exciting times. For one is out of the house and the other one's not quite there, but still.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who kind of know the nextTalk story, that 20-year-old, when she was 9, she's the one that asked me the highly sexualized question as we were getting ready for school one day, and she did not have a phone. And so in my mind, I was like, what has she been exposed to?
Right, exactly.
And that kind of started this whole journey as to why I'm with you today and why I talk about these topics. But it's been 11 years now since that question was asked of me and to today.
And God's done so much.
He has.
He showed me a lot. He's continuing to show me.
We're all learning in real time with Mandy.
Yes.
Right. We are. So from that question that she initiated, so tell us about, just in your experience, what are the hard conversations that parents are currently having, or maybe they're not even having those conversations at all?
Well, there's so much. There's so much going on in our culture. And, with my child, when she asked that question at 9, I had decided not to give her a phone for a long time. And she was still exposed. It was a pornography video that a kid had watched at home, and he told her about it through a conversation. So it wasn't even like, watch this on a screen with me. It was a graphic description of what he had watched the night before. And so there's so much happening. It's almost beyond even a phone. Like, even if your kid does not have a phone, they're still exposed. Because we live in this culture, a broken world, where sin is just normalized. And so I think some of the big conversations, if you say to me, what are the big ones that parents aren't having that they should be having? I think I would say pornography, sexual abuse, gender, and sexuality. I think those are really 4 huge conversations that most parents they don't even want to tackle because they're scared about it.
Yeah.
That was me. Those were the 4 that made me break out in a sweat.
Yeah. I think that's everybody, no matter how comfortable we are or how close our relationship is. Yeah. If we're not armed with knowledge on those topics, or it's just uncomfortable. It is what it is.
Well, and you don't want to overexpose your kids. Like, that was a big one for me when we first started. They were, 9 and 5. And so it was like, how do I talk about that stuff without saying too much too fast and scarring their little heart and mind? And so that takes discernment, and that also takes, I think, not being afraid, but then being able to find the teachable moments that you can meet with your 5-year-old to plant seeds about what may happen in the future on phones or whatever.
Yeah, that's good. So, so we're talking about, all ages of children. We're talking parents who are listening have young children and preschool babies even, but then there's some that have older children, teenagers, and they're maybe even beyond the hard conversations that should have been happening. So before we get into the nuts and bolts of what those conversations actually look like, talk to us about just even in the different stages in life, how do you build that habit of talking with your kids when that's not really what culture encourages
or prioritizes.
Right,
they don't prioritize.
Conversation is, so how do you build those habits?
Well, and even before we get into the habit building, like, why should we build the habit?
Yeah.
You know, if we can tackle that just for a second, because the problem is our kids are overexposed. Whether they have a phone, whether they're not, they're exposed to all this adult information, right? And so how do we parent that?
Yeah.
And we want to shelter, and you can for a little while. You can protect that little kid for a little while until they get around friends or they, you know, and then they're exposed. And so then the solution becomes, how do we parent all that overexposure, right? And when I was journeying to try and figure out that solution, I love what you said in the beginning, Michelle. I really did want, you know, once they got on technology, I wanted an app. I wanted a monitoring service.
Yeah.
And those are all good things. Like, do all the things. Be up in their business, have the passwords, do the random phone checks, do all of it, right? I always say restrictions are good, but it's really about the relationship.
Yeah.
And that's where the conversations come in. And I found that solution through Deuteronomy 6, 6, and 7. And I was reading that one day on my back porch, and it says, teach your kids these commands I'm giving you. Talk.
Yes.
When you're on the go, when you're at home, when you're getting up, and when you're going to bed. So the Lord commands us to create this culture of conversation in our homes. And so, you know, and that's where, like, discipling our kids, like, God is commanding us to do that. And then there's never been a more important time in our home to create that, because that is what will actually be the first line of defense to keeping them safe online, right? So we're creating conversations, a healthy dialogue, open communication in real life to keep our kids safe in the virtual world. But it also keeps them safe in the school bathroom when things are going down. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So that is the goal here, that you're going to create this daily habit of being able to talk about all the things.
Yeah. And I love how, you know, can I read really quick? I meant to read this, but I want to read the scripture that you just quoted. It is Deuteronomy 6, 6 and 7. And it says, these commandments that I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. And it's almost as if the Lord knew. I mean, of course he knew what the future was going to hold for even this time in our lives right now, where we are in culture of we don't have time, so we have to fit it in every aspect of our day. Like God is not necessarily calling us to sit down and have a Bible study at breakfast. Like, that is not doable for a lot of families. Some families it is, and that's great. But God is also saying, no, you just do it all the time in all places.
And be intentional about how you make the time for that.
Yeah.
So you talked about having this openness. So how do you create that openness and transparency with your children in your home, so that you know without a doubt that even when it's a hard conversation, they're going to trust you enough to come and say, this is what I just saw, this is what I just heard.
Yeah. So we have 10 kind of key things that we focus on at nextTalk. They're like the foundational principles. You know, I write about them in my book, but I want to go through some of those, because to me, that is what helped develop this culture. Because it's not going to be an off-on switch, like that you can just get your kid to confide in you. Like that, I wish it worked like that. We're not dealing with that. And so your kids need to learn to trust you. They need to build that relationship. And so a couple things, like my first step in this journey was just asking my kid, what can I do better as a mom? What can I do better as a mom? And
That can be hard.
Well, I mean, she was 9, and so I thought she was going to say, you're the best mommy ever.
Yeah.
She did not.
Kept it real.
So if you're going to ask that question, be ready for the ouch.
Yeah.
But she said, you're not a good listener. And I asked her to give me an example, and she gave me one. She said, just the other night we were in the kitchen, and I was telling you about my friend group, and I was venting to you, and you were nodding your head and saying, yes, I understand, But she said you were also making dinner on your phone, and when we got done, you started asking me questions, a couple minutes later, and I had just given you all that information. So she said, I'm pouring my heart out to you, but you're not, and you're acting like you're listening, but you're not hearing me.
Yeah.
And that was a real gut check, look in the mirror moment for me. We oftentimes are shutting down conversation that we don't realize. We're so busy. We're juggling a lot. And I know we got a lot to handle. I get it. But first priority, first ministry here is these children that we've been entrusted to shepherd and disciple. So I think also as they do start confiding in you, one of the things that I noticed is when I started becoming a good listener and they would confide in me more, they would tell me something and I would go psycho. And they were at a neighbor's house and they were Googling something and porn popped up and the kid said, don't tell your mom. And then they came home and told me, and I'd just go want to run over to the neighbors and scream at everybody and put it on Facebook and don't let your kids go. You just, that mama bear comes out in you. How dare the world steal my innocence of my child? We get protective. And those are real feelings that we have to process with your spouse, with your best friend, with your pastor, with your women's group at church. You have to process those feelings that you're feeling. But with your kid, it is extremely important to have a filter. And, I learned to be thank you so much for telling me. Right. That's what I always want you to do. And I was also old Mandy, she would bring me something and I would okay, no more of that app. We're done. Well, what was that creating in my child? That was telling her, if I want to keep the app, just don't tell mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it feels right to take away the app. But I almost feel now, all these years later, it's almost like we're Eve in the garden, because it sounded right that Eve wanted the knowledge of God. That sounds good and right. God would want that for us.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like we've been manipulated to respond in mama bear mode, but that actually breaks down the relationship with your kid. Because it makes them want to lie to you so they don't lose the app or lose the phone or screen or the friend or whatever that you're going to take away because you're responding badly.
Right.
So that's been a core thing. I always call it avoid crazy parent mode. Don't be psycho like me. Those are some phrases I've used before. And if anybody's out there listening and they're like, oh yeah, I threw away the iPad last night, because that happens a lot, right? I want to say that's okay. You didn't screw up. I think what I would challenge you to do is maybe go back to your kid, because it's such a teachable moment, and be hey, do you remember when you brought that to me and I screamed? And your kid's yeah, you're a crazy woman. And for you to say to your kid, listen, I was not mad at you. That is what I always want you to do, is when something feels off on your screen or at a neighbor's house or with a friend, I always want you to tell me about that. And I promise I'm going to try and not go psycho anymore, right? I'm going to work on that. I was mad though, and I reacted that way because I'm mad that you're growing up in a world that you're 8 and you saw that. It shouldn't be. That shouldn't be on a kid's app. That shouldn't even be online for you to access. Yeah. And I'm mad about that, and I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm going to be mad because I feel that's righteous anger. But I also need to move past that, and I need to process that and really tackle it. Because if we just stay bitter all the time and we're oh, the world is taking our kids. If we stay in that, we're wasting time in building the relationship with our kids. So I'm always parents, as soon as you can get out of the bitter, move into the relationship building, because that's where it's at. That's how God says we keep our kids safe.
So you almost even, I'm picturing, parents who are okay, so I need to create some transparency in our home, and I need to not go psycho. So it's almost we could encourage parents to, if you play sports, anybody who's interested in sports knows that you have a game plan going into it. You know what you're going to do. You know what the plays are before you get into the middle of the game. And so it's you have to prepare yourself. Before you start to have any conversations, it's okay, I'm not going to go crazy no matter what is said. no matter what they tell me. I can't. Like, you hold it in and go to the closet and go crazy, but not in front of them. And then just the transparency of like making yourself vulnerable almost to say, hey, tell me what I could do better.
Yeah,
as
well,
a
it's
mom or a
coaching
dad.
yourself.
Yeah.
It's coaching yourself, knowing what reaction that's probably going to spur from you. But I think it's also helping our kids know that we are imperfect in so many different things, and I think that helps them see how transparent the vulnerability that we want to be with them, and it helps them know that they can do the same with us.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think, in the 11 years that I've been in this, of course, following Jesus is the number one thing, has got me through it. But I think the second thing is having the heart of humility of Jesus is the thing that has transcended all of it. Because also, like, when I didn't have the right words, or maybe I did phrase it wrong, or I did come off a little judgmental and I shouldn't have, like, it's okay to say to your kid, like, I didn't handle that right, and I'm so sorry. And what was crazy to me is that as I was apologizing to them more, and looking in the mirror and seeing that I wasn't a good listener, and that I had issues that I had to work through and fix, that I'm human, we're all still learning. Like, as I was doing that, what I saw in my kids was crazy, because they would start to do that. I remember one time I was driving my teen daughter to school, and she was so sassy that morning, and I knew she had several tests, and it was junior year. I mean, it was crazy for her, right? But I was trying not to go crazy, psycho, and hold it all in. And I thought to myself, later today, this is going to be a conversation, because she is like off the charge extra to this morning, right? But I was just consuming it all, just trying to be kind. And she got out of the car and walked up the steps, and she took 2 steps up, and then she turned around. She came back down, opened up the car door, and she looked at me and she said, "I'm sorry, I'm super stressed." And I just remember that moment that she did that, because where God took me was me looking in the mirror saying I was sorry to her. Like, do you see this, Mandy? If you are humble, she's going to be humble.
Right.
And then it creates an environment in your home where we all are learning together, and it's okay if you fall. It's okay if you make a mistake, even online, even if you do something crazy. It's there may be consequences. It may be hard things we have to walk through, but we're going to do it together. Because we're all trying to figure out how to be better humans here.
Right. Yeah, I think that is one thing that we really want. Our heart is for, and yours as well, is for parents to not feel shame, or like they're not getting it together because their story looks different than any of ours, or their friend's story with their relationship with their kids. We don't want parents to feel shame in that, because life is hard. And I would even say, and I don't know, you guys can chime in on this, that it's not always the parent's fault that the conversations aren't happening. There's so much that in our culture that's impacting our kids that wasn't there when we were growing up, and that is influencing them. And they shut down for other reasons now than the reasons we shut down for when we were younger. And so, yes, it is a huge responsibility for parents to own, and we should own it. But they also need to know it's not all their fault,
Well, that's why I love the body of Christ too, right? I mean, I grew up with a single mom. She didn't have time to have all these conversations with me. She's just trying to get food on the table for me and her. And so that is why I love partnering with churches. And I love the partnership that's just organically formed from Oak Hills. You guys have been such an encouragement to us, because, we're about open communication in the families. But we go into all these churches, and when you have open communication in the church where parents feel safe, that transforms everything, because the parent feels supported. They have more time to minister at home because they are getting cared for at the church. That's not always the case. That I had one parent tell me one time, she shared this horrible story with me, this thing that her kid walked through. And she had told nobody in her church for years. And it broke my heart. And that was not in Texas, but it broke my heart, because I was like, church should be the first place you run to when you're struggling.
Yeah.
It should be a place of no judgment or no shame. It should be like encourage each other, lift each other up, all the different generations coming alongside of you. And that's what I love about Oak Hills. Y'all are so healthy, and you're like, talk about all the things, Mandy. Talk about are you sure?
We have to, because if they can't, the parents aren't being equipped outside of the church. I don't know. I mean, really, I don't know where else they're being equipped, as well as like the conversations that we have. We ask the hard questions because it's some of the questions that parents have that they're afraid to ask. It's because they're embarrassing. The questions are embarrassing, and they don't want to be judged. They don't want their children to be judged, which is also a thing too.
Well, and the other is that these are conversations that we're having. Parents there is that trust factor, and so they approach us with these hard questions. And so our thought is, if they're asking us about this, they're not the only parent that is dealing with that.
Yeah.
And so that was the whole vision through Michelle's role in acquiring an opportunity through Parent Talk to help equip, encourage, and empower our parents. It is so important. And to do the best that we could with much intentionality to help all those other questions that were out there that weren't being asked to be asked.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because culture is saying that parents aren't good enough.
Right.
There's people who are saying, if parents would just do their job, kids wouldn't be like the way they are today. Well, that's not always true. It's just not always true. And we want parents to know that, and we want to come alongside them. So thinking about the parents who are, whether they're, I would say a good majority of parents who might be listening to this, and I'm making a judgment call, is that they are thinking, well, I am way far down the road. I have missed the boat, the train, and the airplane. And now I don't even know, my child will not speak to me about anything except for, I need a new pair of shoes. Where's their hope in that? How do they get past that?
Well, we serve a Savior who's all about redemption and second chances and starting over, like new creation, right? That is literally giving your life to Christ. And I think I want to encourage you, like I have seen real life stories, right? Real practical families contacting us with this same question. Yeah. They're 16, they have their phone in the bedroom all night. I've done none of this. I should have had the conversations. We've never talked about porn, all of it. And where I tell them to start with an apology.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to miss this.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the dangers on the phone. I didn't realize what kind of access you had. But because of that, I know you've been exposed. Because I always tell parents at that point, they've been exposed to things you have not discussed. So say all the words. Don't say pornography, say sexuality, don't hold back if your kid is on a phone and you've never had any conversations. Because I think sometimes when a mom or dad says pornography and they've never said it in their house before, it's almost like, oh, they know.
Yeah.
They know about this stuff.
Yeah.
Where if it's not talked about, they think, oh, they've swept it under the rug. They're not going to even acknowledge it. They don't even know what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
And so just rip the Band-Aid off and start with an apology. And what I have seen in families, when parents take that route, it doesn't happen right away. It's not like that night the relationship is resolved. But over time, the kid sees, okay, I may have messed up, but they're owning their part.
Right, yeah.
And so eventually what we want is kid to own their responsibility, right? And so we're modeling that for them. We're owning our part.
Yeah.
We missed it.
Yeah.
And I want to say, if you missed it, like we've all missed it. I missed it. When my 9-year-old asked me the question, I was like, I have missed all of these years.
Yeah.
Like with my kindergartner, he was 5 at the time. I implemented stuff right away because I thought I have missed 4 years with my daughter before this question came about of building the foundation. And so we've all missed it. We're all late. And right when you figure out like how to talk to them about something, then culture and Satan sends you something else where you're like, well, okay, this is a whole other topic we got to discuss now.
Yeah.
So, but I would say just start with an apology. And I have seen relationships be restored.
Yeah.
I have seen kids and parents just like not perfect, but reunited and taking steps in the right direction.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to act like, okay, it's this apology and then we're great.
Right.
That's not real life.
Yeah.
But no relationship is perfect, right? And so we just want to take one step in the right direction. It's like sanctification with Jesus, us and Jesus, right?
Yeah.
It's like this continuous improvement in our relationship. And so every day just being able to improve and build in a positive way.
That's good. I have another question, and I know you've got more too. When it comes to like having to maybe catch up on years missed or whatever, so there's that. But then there's also the parent who, whether it's the mom or the dad or both parents or single parents, they're walking through their own depression or anxiety, completely unrelated from the child, or even a physical sickness, or there's just stress. There's so many things where the parent is like, I can't even begin to think about how to have that conversation because I have my own struggle. Yeah, my own struggle. And so it is so important for parents to make sure that they're taking care of themselves, right? Because even if a hard conversation comes, well, that's almost like trauma for the parent. Like if the child, they find porn or something, it's like traumatic for the parent, and they need to be taken care of on top of everything else that they're, already having to deal with. So it is important for parents to care for themselves, right?
Well, and we know you're on an airplane. We know this analogy.
Yeah.
You have to put your mask on first before your child.
Yeah.
What does that do? It allows you to breathe the air before you so that you can actually care for your child, right? Because if you're passed out, you're not going to be able to help that kid anymore.
Exactly.
And so you have to take care of yourself. And again, the local church, your village, people like what you said, that you trust to give you solid advice.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important. I mean, that's why life groups are so important, women's groups, because then storms are going to come in our life. There will be sickness. There will be trauma, right? I mean, we live in a broken world. And so that's when your village carries you alongside of you and does life with you. And it's so, so important. And one of the things too, when we do talk about this looking in the mirror, that's like a core principle at nextTalk. It's the humility part, yes. But it is also this, you mentioned, I may be able to talk to my kid about everything except that one topic that is a trigger for me because I am unhealed from something in my past. And when I say look in the mirror and do the hard work, that's what I mean. Like you need to heal. You and Jesus need to do some work. And that may mean counseling. That may mean, Bible study, confiding in somebody, just getting it out.
Right.
I've had women, it is crazy ministering to women. Like women will tell me, I've carried this for decades and I've told nobody.
Oh.
And I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
Like Jesus doesn't want that for you.
No.
Satan wants you trapped in shame where you suffer in silence. And that's where he gets our kids, right? In their room at night with the porn. And then I can't tell mom, I can't tell dad. They would never look at me the same. That is Satan's biggest tool, is to get us trapped by ourselves and in this shame and isolation where nobody can speak truth into you. That God can even actually use this mistake for good. Like he's that powerful. Not only can he forgive you, but he can literally help another family if you tell your story. Like there's nobody else like our Jesus, right? To be able to do that.
That's right.
And so, you've heard the pain into purpose, the mess into message. We've all heard those little sayings. It's true. God can do that, and only God can do that.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah, we got to take care of ourselves.
Absolutely. And I do love the way that you just reminded us of how he redeems the pain. Because the suffering is very real. And whether it's the parent or it's their child, it exists. And so it's finding ways that we can help meet that need, how best to minister to that family or to the child, no matter what that age is. Because I'm seeing this happening younger and younger as the years go by. And, to your point of not, of just being so perplexed about how early they are being exposed to so many things. And so I do, my heart goes out to the parents because they are trying. And then many times you have a dual parent role where they have to work and kids are in school and then they're in daycare or whatever that looks like. And they're trying to do the best that they can. But I love that we can, again, walk alongside them to help encourage them on that journey as they are the spiritual formation leaders in their home. It is not easy.
Well, and I want to speak into that, the busyness, that, don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I say talk to your kids, people are like, oh my gosh, a 30-minute conversation like every day or every 2 hours. No, this is like 3 minutes here, 5 minutes there.
Yeah.
This is like your kid crawling in bed with you at night and you just venting about your day and you don't even realize it, but you're gathering context about how their little mind is processing their world. And God will give you little nuggets to tell that your kid needs. And that's the other thing. Like, I love to give like practical one-liners, practical, conversation starters. All those things are great. But I also say to parents all the time, like, I am not the Holy Spirit. Like, you have the Holy Spirit living in you.
That's right.
And He is going to equip you with the words that your child needs. And it may be something very different than how I need to address an issue with my child. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's so like the main time issue involved with this mode of parenting, like Deuteronomy 6 and 7 parenting, to me, the most work is about working on yourself. And the other stuff comes naturally because you and Jesus are syncing up and you're getting healed and you're getting figured out. And then as you're in the Word more, God is filling you with that wisdom to speak into your kids. And then it comes naturally. Like, it's a 2-minute conversation in the car. It's a 3-minute conversation right before bedtime. And then all of a sudden you're seeing these little things. And so it's not this like 8 hours of conversation a day. Oh my gosh, please do not do that to your kids. It's just this on the go. And I think that's what God was painting for us in Scripture. That's why He gave us the 4 key times, because He's basically saying, as you go about your daily life, these moments are going to come up and you cannot miss them, or you cannot be afraid of them.
Right.
So your kid says a big word, a highly sexualized question, and you're like, oh, let's just ignore that. We're too busy for it. That sends a message to your children that you're not available to answer their questions. And now they have Google, they have Siri, they have AI bots that they can ask those questions. And so, like, again, it's never been more important. When I grew up, I mean, we had the encyclopedia and friends. Right? Like, it really wasn't as important. I mean, I wanted, we needed our parents to speak into us, but I don't think there was an urgency like there is today. The world is speaking loud to your kids, but we want Jesus' voice to be louder. So that means we have to have the conversations. That's where we come in.
That's good. So transparency. Honesty,
humility.
Don't go crazy, but take care of yourself. By first relying on the Lord and working on your relationship with the Lord, along with anything else that helps you physically, emotionally, spiritually to take care of yourself while you're taking care of your kids.
Yes. I love that you encouraged how the Spirit empowers you. And so it really is leaning into trusting that, God is alive, and through His Spirit, He will empower us to be able to have these open and honest conversations with children and parents so that they feel like they are coming around their family and God is speaking through them, that ministers and disciples them in a way that they as parents they're the heroes in this. And God is essentially, but but they are the ones that are making the bigger difference than even any one of us.
Mandy, thank you so much for being with us here today. We learned how to have healthy conversations with our kids and why it's important to have healthy conversations with our kids. So I hope you'll join us for episode 2, where we take the principles that we've learned on how to have conversations with our kids and apply it to having conversations around digital media, around phones, social media, all of that. So I hope you join us for episode 2.